All right. Hello. A little bit late, but I'm here. So as you can tell, it's a slightly different angle. I am in. Let me just settle down for a second. I am in Phoenix, Arizona. So I am not getting the smoke ball. Where I am, maybe where actually I don't know where you are, Paul. Are you in Eastern Canada? Or are you in the New England area? I've been seeing some disturbing pictures from New York City today. That really weird amber tone that you get when you see wildfires nearby. You see it sometimes in pictures on the Pacific coast, like in Oregon and California and such. But no, I'm in. Oh, okay, yeah. So you're in the Toronto area. Yeah. That. Oh gosh. Yeah. The air quality really does suffer. Um, yeah, I saw something. I think it was on CBC that there were like 400 active fires across Canada or something like that. Maybe that maybe don't. Well, I just said it on a live stream, so I don't. I just remember seeing a headline on CBC and it being rather disturbing. So um, I have been in contact with the Warren family and such, and like as Jeff had noted on Sunday that they're all okay, but dealing with some of the obvious air quality stuff. So, but yeah, so in Tucson, I'm normally in Tucson, Arizona, south of here, but I'm up in Phoenix to help out family, and so yeah. The number of fires isn't really that important. It's bad, and that I think is the universal thing. So thinking of the folks that are all responsible for, or that help on firefighters, hotshots, and everybody that works to help control wildfires. So I think I'm trying to remember now. It's been a bit of a scattered week. I think I used a thumbnail for this week's live stream of a boat. And that was the theme was going to be working with anchors. So I'll get to that in a second. But for some of you who have been maybe tuning in for the last 3 minutes, don't know who I am. My name is Andrew. I'm a mindfulness meditation coach. I'm certified through the Unified Mindfulness program. I'm also a fill-in guest host for the Do Nothing Project with Jeff Warren. I've had the remarkable honor of being a fill-in on Radio Kingston in Kingston, New York, for their breathing room meditation show that they do as part of the Heavy Light show with Ida. And let's see, I think that's the beginning and end of my list of meditation coach accomplishments. So I'm currently in a meditation teacher training program that's done by Susan Piver from the Open Heart Project, and people may know from many books. So I have not completed that program yet. Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I wasn't totally sure as this was going to work out, and I'm glad that it did. So, but you probably showed up so that you could meditate. So I don't want to do too much random information across the top. So you will hear meditation coaches talking about working with an anchor. And I think one of the innovations that I always like about Jeff's approach is Jeff uses the term home base for what often people use the term anchor for. And this idea that if you can visualize in your head a little bit of when a boat has dropped its anchor, the boat is not normally right on top of the anchor. The boat is usually kind of moving and shifting and in a dynamic sort of relationship with where the anchor is and the boat is in relationship to it based on the waves and the swell and everything related to the water. And so I think I love the home base idea because you may not need to like be indoors at the home base, but you can be sort of on the territory of the home base. And each of those is a way to look at playing with how much you want to, how close you want to be to whatever sensation, um, whatever sensory experience that you're using for your home base. And so one of the things that's always helpful to look at is that we can use any aspect of our sensory experience for a home base. And that is where the unified mindfulness system and then Shinzen Young's wider system of ultra, which is um, the unified library of awareness training. I forget what makes up the ultra acronym at this moment, but I think it's a unified library of training awareness. Maybe the A is attention. I'll have to look it up now that I'm saying it out loud. But so I wanted to play around a little bit with just this idea of that, and that'll be our sort of something for tonight. So we'll sit for 25 minutes. And the playing with an anchor. You'll choose your anchor. So that anchor could be sounds. That anchor could be the body. That anchor could be sight. So that's one thing you could use as well. So visual stimulus could be the eyes closed too. And it could be the breath. For the breath doesn't work for everybody. Sounds often are kind of a good pivot if the breath doesn't work for you, just as an aside. But that's the notion here is that we'll let you choose that, and then we'll finish after we've worked with that anchor for a good amount of time. We'll finish with a do nothing practice, or with a letting go of the practice, and then just kind of seeing what is it like when our attention is free range, when our attention can go anywhere. Where does it go? So that is the plan. And I said more off the top than I had planned on. And then I realize now that I don't have a bell, so I will use my voice as a bell. So I've got 25 minutes on the clock. I can imagine that I just rang a bell, and it's very sonorous and nice. And then, if you're like me, I'm sitting on a chair. So just kind of, if you are sort of shifting a little bit forward on that chair, I've moved myself forward a little bit so that I can have my feet flat on the floor. And ideally, I want to allow myself to be heavy from the waist down. And the feet are flat just because that's one way to avoid elevating your blood pressure, apparently. I just learned that in one of my platelet donations recently. And arranging the hands in a way that's comfortable kind of helps you to be still. So that could be with the palms facing down on the thighs, or maybe sort of cupped gently in your lap. And so from the waist down, we're heavy, but from the waist up, we're light, or even buoyant. And the spine is upright, but not uptight. Shoulders are down and back. And then just checking to see if you notice any tension. And if you do notice the tension, sometimes just bringing your focus to it is enough to get it to release a bit. And if it doesn't, then that's our first opportunity to bring a no big deal attitude to our sit. And then a few calm, deliberate breaths. Breathing in through the nose, breathing out through the nose. Slow and low is our tempo we're going for. just offering you options here. So the first option is to kind of allow my guidance to be in the background and then just sort of focusing on the notion or the feeling of being a body here, or sitting and knowing that you're sitting, is how Joseph Goldstein says it. So that is your first option. And we're marking this because if you do feel like you've lost track of things, you can come back to this very basic sense of just sitting and knowing that you're sitting. And so if you have a home base, as Jeff says, that you work with often, you've got a favorite picked out, totally invite you to work with that. So for our exploration today, it's not the what home base or what anchor we're using. It's more just sort of exploring how we interact with that anchor. And so if it's sounds, we'll sometimes have sounds arise and they peak and then they go away. And what that can lead to is sort of this leaning forward, waiting for the next sound. And that's why a heater vent or an air conditioner vent or a fridge is such a good sound to use. And we're not correcting the leaning forward, we're just noticing that leaning forward. Like, oh, that's interesting. And if you're using the breath, which is totally fine, maybe see if you're distantly observing the breath or if you're feeling the breath. So it might feel like, or it might seem like, I should say, not overuse the word feel. It might seem like you're sort of grading how close you are to your breath, like sort of distantly. That might be one way that you're working with the breath. What would it be like to really like feel the breath? And that feeling shifts us more in touch with that anchor. So I'll let you work with that for a bit, and then I'll come back in and offer a few other suggestions. And just a reminder to check your posture. I noticed a shift in kind of feeling a little more eager and a little more thought, and then I realized I was literally leaning forward. So I shifted my posture a bit, ideally just checking to make sure that the shoulders haven't kind of floated up, which they have a tendency to do. And for me, I leaned back a bit, ensuring my shoulders are over my hips. And some practices emphasize posture more than others. So it might not resonate with you, but just give it a shot. Try it out. And then for our home base, seeing if you can kind of find the edges of it. So if you're working with the breath, where do you feel the breath? If you're working with sounds, what direction are the sounds coming from? Are they coming from behind you, to the left, to the right? Keep exploring. So bring a little awareness, almost like taking a snapshot of the internal state of how you feel right now. So what's it like in the body? Is there no calm? Feeling kind of agitated or a little uneasy or in between? And then after you got a snapshot, and letting go of the technique. So releasing whatever our home base was, letting go of the anchor. Some call this choiceless awareness. And you might even think of it as a sort of autofocus. So we've let go of any intention to control where the attention is. We have no technique, or we have the technique of no technique. And when we do that, you may find that you have this sort of autofocus where your attention moves to my voice. And then maybe it sounds in another room. And maybe it's the sort of feeling of hearing nothing, which sounds kind of weird, but or the vibration of the ear. So just playing with where does the attention want to go when you allow it to be free range? And then following along. And then lastly, you can always shift back to your home base if you feel like dropping the home base is not supportive for you right now. It's always an option to go back or to return to that waypoint that we offered at the very, very beginning of just sitting and knowing that you're sitting. So see what works for you. And imagine that I rang a very pleasant sounding, sonorous bell. Go ahead and let go of the technique. Begin reconnecting to your surroundings. Thank you for your practice. Thank you for sitting with me for 25 minutes and listening very attentively at the top. So I very much appreciate everyone's attention. If you have questions or reports, you can put those in chat. You're very welcome, Jennifer. Thank you for coming. And thank you, Paul. And again, Michael Perry, thank you. Hope all is well in Vancouver, Michael. Oh, hello, Lynn. You're very welcome. So let's see. I think I'll put together another live stream for next week. I'm in the market for themes. If you have thoughts about themes. Oh yeah. So Paul's question. Can I talk a bit about autofocus? So in the unified mindfulness system, one way that Shinzen will talk about do nothing is in this notion where we've let go of all of our we've let go of the intention to have or to implement a technique, and a technique is a focus range. So meaning I'm focusing on some aspect of my sensory experience. So maybe that's the body. If we were looking at breath meditation, we would see that as our focus range would be like the breath within the body, or sounds would be the other one. And then there's an instruction set of how to do that. And so another way of looking at the do nothing practice, the very pure do nothing practice, the instructions for do nothing is, if you notice the intention to control your attention, let go of it. And then in essence, let your attention go wherever it wants. And so another way of thinking about that in like choiceless part is that the attention then auto focuses on what's interesting, or will bring salience, I think is a kind of a neuroscience-y way to say it, to something that is of interest. And there's that sort of notion of autofocus, like if you've played with a camera and it will see a particular object and then focus on it. It's that kind of aspect that I think Shinzen's trying to point to with autofocus. So it's a little bit of describing do nothing from a different perspective. So let me know if that lands a little bit better, Paul. And if not, I can kind of follow up, or I can go a little bit of see if there's a better way for me to offer a response. But that's what I'm looking at. Is this? I was trained as a photographer early on in high school and community college days, and so that autofocus idea may resonate more with me than the way I had put it forward. So yeah, so I'll leave it at that, and then maybe we can play around a bit. But it's really this idea that if there's no bounds put on our attention, where would it go? And then when it finds something, maybe then that's the autofocus part. Like, oh, I hear this sound in the other room, and that my attention is like drawn to that. I have this like, and it automatically does this and kind of like focuses to that. Or the air conditioning just came on, and so I can feel a little bit of that notion of my sound. That sound is now something that my attention is now sort of focused on. And it's a little bit in that choiceless awareness. I always associate that with Krishnamurti. Okay, that's an. If I notice I'm seeing, yes, okay, all right. So I think that makes sense too, Paul. So I see what you're saying. So, I would say yes, because the focus is I would think of the noticing as tracking behind the auto focusing. But I actually now will have to work on thinking about if I'm getting that. So that's a very astute question. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's how I think about it, is with the attention is focusing before my noticing is caught up to it. But that's very, very intriguing. And then you're very welcome, Colette. Thank you for coming. I think that, but yeah, those are. Thank you for the questions, Paul. Those are, I appreciate. I hadn't thought about the order on that, so that's really intriguing. Okay, I got to get back to my family. But thank you everyone for coming. And then also a wave and hello to everyone who's looking at the recording in the future. A few people had reached out and said they wouldn't be able to make it today, but they were going to try to do the recording. So yeah, yeah, you're very welcome, and thank you for the question. But yeah, so for the folks in the recording, and if you, I appreciate too when folks will reach back out and message during the week. So so yeah, happy Wednesday. See folks on Sunday, and yeah, have a good one.